Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 39 now. And this is Barry here with you on a Friday morning, and the sun is trying to break through. And today's weather will be partly cloudy and a top temperature of 23 degrees and 24 out in the west. Something tells me that the warm weather is about to start to creep up on us, but still cold in the morning. So today on the show we're going to talk about television and the history of television. So television in Australia started in September 1956, and that was the initial switch on just in time for the Melbourne Olympics. Now, black and white television started back then in Australia. And the first station to go on air in Sydney was ATN Channel 7 Sydney. Now, Channel 7 in Sydney began its life in the suburb of Epping near Beecroft. Now, the address I can't give you on the show, but I can tell you some of the shows that were filmed at the Epping site. Some of the shows were Romper Room, 7 News, Wheel of Fortune, Hey Day, Home and Away, you name it, they filmed it. And today we're also going to be talking about television news. So, it's a very good topic on television indeed, and also the history of this program which I'm doing with you now. So rather than just going on about the same things, we're going to talk about television. And joining me now, it's a good morning to Nat. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Barry. Good morning, everybody. And it's very nice to be with you on a Friday morning. I haven't been here for a week or two, so it's always a pleasure to sit with you on Friday morning.
So, we'd like to hear from you what your favourite television show was, but we'll ask that question again very shortly now. The second station open was at Channel 9, and they were based at Willoughby for 64 years. Now, some of the shows that were filmed at 9 were the Today Show, the Midday Show, Birzo's Catchphrase, the Sunday program, 60 Minutes, Sports Sunday, Wide World of Sports, Australia's Funniest Home Videos, if you remember that show, and the Mike Walsh Show, and many others. Now, another show which was filmed at the 9 studios was The Footy Show and National 9 News, which is now 9 News. Now, we're also going to talk about how the news is put together today. And we'll cover that very shortly. So let me take you back to some of the shows at the 7 network before I talk about the 9 shows. Okay, the 7 network, they filmed a lot of shows like Hey Dad, so they had, so 7 had a lot of sets for different shows like Hey Dad and Home and Away and the news, but the news was in a different department. Now, if you've ever been to a television station, guys, and seen the makeup department, the newsroom, where they tape the shows, you'll probably see, or you would have seen all the cameras, okay, and the boom, the sound, the lighting, and things like that. So Nat, have you ever been to a television station?
I have not, Barry, not yet, but I certainly would be interested in going.
So, some of the shows at 7 in Sydney, okay, like Hey Dad, that was a funny show, and full of comedy, so if you wanted a night out, you would have liked to have gone to the 7 network studios. And also, Wheel of Fortune, that was a good show there.
It was a good show. I did always enjoy Wheel of Fortune, Barry.
And Wheel of Fortune began its life in 1959, hosted by Reg Grundy. But the color version of Wheel of Fortune, okay, it started on the 7 network in Adelaide in 1981, with the first host, Ernie Sigley, and his co-host was Adriana Xenadis. And then following that, in 1984, Ernie Sigley left and John Burgess took over. And then in later years, Tony Barber used to host the show. And then there was Steve, and then Rob Elliott. Now, unfortunately, Adriana Xenadis passed on in 2010, but that's all I will say about that. So, the show was shown after so many seasons. I don't know how many seasons there were, but the show was moved up to the 7 network studios in Sydney in Epping. And then in 2003, Channel 7 moved to Martin Place. And it was, would you believe it? Okay, it was in the old State Bank building. Now, don't be surprised, viewers, of how good my memory is, but it is damn good, I can tell you that. So the newsroom moved from Epping to Martin Place, okay? And also, the news had different techniques of getting to where. Okay? The sets used to be rolled in. Okay? But I'd like to tell you about the camera side of things. Okay, when reporters and journalists used to go out on jobs, they used to carry their camera on their shoulders, and they still do that today. Now, Channel 7 and Channel 9 and Channel 10 and the ABC all had Betacam cameras. Now, the Betacam tapes were at the same size as home videotapes. Now, do you remember seeing a Betacam camera?
I do, Barry, yes, I'm at that age where I do remember that, and they were very hefty, weren't they? And getting back to what you said about maybe the viewers will be surprised about your memory, I'm fascinated that you know so much information about the history and production of television. You have a fabulous memory.
So, let's talk about now how who produced some of the shows that were done on many different television stations. Now, before we do that, Channel 2 opened in 1956 as well, okay? And Channel 2 was located at Gore Hill, opposite the Royal North Shore Hospital on the Pacific Highway. Now, I went to Channel 2 to see where Play School was, and Mr. Squiggle, the newsroom, and all the makeup areas and the props where police rescue was. So, you know, guys, again, don't be surprised at how good my memory is there. So, let's go on to who produced some of the shows. Well, firstly, Wheel of Fortune was produced by the Grundy Organization. Now, the Grundy Organization was a production company who produced shows like Wheel of Fortune, Sale of the Century, Neighbors, The Young Doctors, It's a Knockout, if you remember that, with Billy J. Smith and Fiona McDonald, and The Restless Years, Blankety Blanks, Sacred Valley, The Restless Years, just to name a few.
That is a lot of programs there, Barry.
And Cop Shop was produced by Cole Crawford Productions. And I forgot Perfect Match, that was produced by the Grundy Organization too. They started on the 10 Network on the 30th of January 1984.
Wow.
Again, don't be surprised how far I can remember that far back. Gosh.
Have you been researching this topic for a while, Barry, or it's something that you've been interested in for quite some time?
I've been researching it and watching it.
And watching it, okay. And you've been to some TV studios, you said.
Yes.
Any
Yeah.
standout memories?
Well, the standout memories for me now was when I went to see the midday show.
Okay.
That was
Is
with,
that Channel 9?
yeah.
And who was the host?
Well, it was Darren Hinch.
Okay.
That was in 1994.
Oh, some time back now.
And then, well, it used to be Ray Martin.
Yes?
Then it was branded as the Mike Walsh Show until 1985 on the 11th of February when it was switched to the midday show. The midday show was aired until 1998. So the midday show was a favorite of mine, and also Burjo's catchphrase that was hosted by John Burgess.
That was a good show too, wasn't it?
It was a good show.
Do you have any favourites, Harry?
Mainly Burjo's catchphrase
Okay.
and the midday show.
So more topical programs rather than the comedy,
Yeah.
okay, or game shows. There was a lot of game shows around, wasn't there?
Game shows I went to see Wheel of Fortune. That was in Adelaide on the Seven Network there, and then it moved its production from Adelaide to Sydney, and now I'd like to talk about the news. So I will cut to another shot with that. Now, before I talk about the news, I'd like to tell you about where some of the dramas were filmed, like Home and Away, which still is on air today from Monday to Thursday on the Seven Network, is filmed at the location Summer Bay. Now I was up near there filming with someone a couple of weeks, a month or so back, so you can watch that video now. Okay, and Home and Away filmed and on the Seven Network, or premiered on the Seven Network on Sunday, the 17th of January, 1988. And it was a 2-hour movie length episode. And then on Monday, the 18th of January, at 7 p.m., that's when Home and Away on the second night filmed on the Seven Network. It was aired at different times before the news. So Home and Away, like I said, is located in Summer Bay. Now, another Channel 7 show, A Country Practice, it was filmed at the London Valley. And sadly, it no longer is on our screens.
You know, Barry, that was one of my favourite shows growing up, watching a country practice. Where is the Wandon Valley? Do you know?
We will have to look that up.
Okay, do a bit of research.
So another favourite show of mine was Chopper Squad. Now, this show was filmed at Dee Why on Sydney's northern beaches, and the helicopter used to land at James Mayland Reserve. Now, the surf club where the radio room was, that's where they took the phone calls, and it was surf rescue. The helicopter was sponsored by radio station 2SM, and the helicopter was a Bell Jet Ranger. So the Chopper Squad was produced by the Grundy organization, Reg Grundy Production. And then the show relocated to Palm Beach, and it was produced, and the station was the O10 network back then. So you may have seen Chopper Squad growing up. So there was this episode, guys, where this man hijacked the minibus, and this guy goes, "Hey, that's my bus, come back." So he was called the stuntman, and the helicopter had to chase him down, and then Barry, the pilot, the star Robert Colby was played by Barry, the helicopter pilot. So you may have seen the intros to Chopper Squad and the outros. So that's the drama side. And Neighbours. Now, Neighbours aired on the 7 Network in 1985. And where was it based? Melbourne, of course. And it was on air at 5:30. Some of the stars were Alan Dale. He had an acting role as a doctor in The Young Doctors. I can't tell you I don't know where The Young Doctors were filmed, because we will have to look that up also. So Neighbours began its life on the 7 Network. But then Channel 7 cancelled its contract, and 10 happily picked it up on Monday, the 20th of January, 1986. And another show that premiered, of course, was Off the Ditch. Now, much has changed in television, and let's talk about some of the cartoons before we go to the news. Some of my favorite cartoons were The Smurfs, The Incredible Hulk, He-Man, The Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, the Flintstones, if you remember that. Pebbles and Bam Bam, remember that. And also, also Super Friends.
I remember all of those programs, Barry. I think we're at the same age of growing up and watching the same sort of TV programs together.
So, another program that aired on the 7 Network was the Cartoon Connection. Now, that was hosted by Alex Wallman and Michael Horrocks in those days. It started at 20 to 7 in the morning and continued right until 9 o'clock. That was on the 7 Network. I wonder where the Cartoon Connection is now. And also on there was Agro's Cartoon Connection. Now, just to give you a little bit of history, back in 1992, I met Agro at the Today FM studios. Now, Today FM was located at Crow's Nest. Now, when I was growing up in Queensland, there was a show called 7 Super Saturday. Now, Agro was starred on that show, and the show was aired every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock on BTQ7 in Britain, not ACN in Sydney. Now, do you remember Pac-Man? I'm sure that you do. Now, do you remember Astro Boy?
Oh, I loved Astro Boy.
And what about Battle of the Planets? Remember that?
I don't believe I've seen that one, Barry.
That was another show. And also, Ulysses 31, that was another show that aired on the ABC. So, but let's finish the shows on 7, 9, and 10 first. Now, another show on air, that's incredible. The world around us, around the world in 80 days, and also the Adventures of Black Beauty, if you remember that, and Mr. Ed. Do you remember that? Hello, I'm Mr. Ed. Sorry, I can't do the talking horse bit. And also, 11 a.m. So let's go on to the news now. But one more show I do remember, guys, and that was two shows. Couch Potato, The Factory, that was on the ABC, Rage.
Rage, that's still on now, I believe, Barry.
It is. And also Video Hits. So that was on the 10 Network as well. Okay, so.
Speaking of the program Rage, Barry, that was a musical program. Do you remember Countdown?
I do, yes.
Sunday night. I don't know what station it was on though.
Channel 2.
Channel 2.
that was aired at 6 p.m. But the show began its life in 1974 and concluded in 1987. So a lot of shows have now been off air for some time, okay, and another show I do remember was the Sunday program, which brings us nicely on to the news, and we will talk about current affairs programs next. But before that, sadly, Neighbours finished last year, and it was an emotional time. Now, they called it Ramsey Street back then, so Neighbours was switched over to Channel 10 back then, and now that's the end of all the drama shows. We haven't got all morning to tell you all of the dramas that were on, but I can tell you that there were some good drama programs there.
Certainly was back then in the day.
What was your favourite soapy back in the day?
I'd have to say A Country Practice, Barry. Growing up, that was probably on the top of the list. I didn't watch too much TV growing up in the country. We had a very small black and white TV that ran only on solar power, and we had 2 channels. We had Win TV, which was based out of Wollongong, and the ABC.
Now, we're also going to talk about station slogans as well. So let's talk about the news and station slogans. Now, station slogans, your home on 10. Do you remember that? And 18-7, let's all be there. 7, hey, let's all be there. 7, wow, let's all be there. And Channel 9, you're still the one, if you remember that. And Win Television, it's a great place to be. Do you remember that? It's a great place to be. I'm pretty sure you remember that. So let's talk about now how the news is put together. The news is put together by journalists and a camera crew. Journalists go into the television station, and the COS, which is the chief of staff, assigns the reporters and camera crews to the job. And the chief of staff also looks at press releases and stories that may be breaking during the day or may have broken overnight. So the first person on deck that starts in the morning, the chief of staff, and that is when the newsroom first comes to life. And I will pause that. So the chief of staff's job is to look and to phone all the relevant people, okay, such as the police, fire and the ambulance, and people significant to a specific story. Now, the reporter's job, okay, is to find out what happened, where it happened, why it's important to the viewers, and how it will affect the viewers. Now, a news bulletin takes all day to make. There are news updates throughout the day, and there are many bulletins. Some bulletins are done during the sunrise show on Channel 7, which you see every day, and the Today Show. So every bulletin runs 5 minutes every half hour. So to get the news stories, like again, the chief of staff will organize a camera crew and a reporter to go out to interview the person who is significant to the story. When reporters return from a job, it is their responsibility to write the script, then record the voiceover, which is where you go into a booth and record the voice, and then the editing suite, okay, you take your tape into the editing suite, okay, and then you give the tape to the person in the editing suite, okay, and then the reporter's voice and the pieces will go on to the news at night. But sometimes certain stories have to be dropped to make way for breaking news. Now, you've probably seen breaking news, okay? Now, breaking news is when a story breaks, say like the Surrey Hills fire a couple of months back. Now that was a huge story. So this is why certain stories have to be dropped to make way for breaking news. And news changes constantly, every single day. Now, it is important that the journalist's story is accurate and fair, and to make sure that they're telling they're getting all the right facts about the story. So this is why it is important to make that reporters ask what happened, where it occurred, where it took place. So a journalist will go out with a camera person and interview the person. And you often will see on the news, okay, witnesses that were there at the time about what happened. So back in the days, there would be the cameras. And what happened? The tape would go in the side of the camera, okay? The tape was similar to a home videotape. And the cameraman used to carry the camera on their shoulder. Now, the camera had the station logo on it, okay, and a big microphone and a sound recordist. Now, a sound recordist is where the person records the sound. The sound recordist will then wear a set of headphones. So as the reporter is speaking, the sound recorders will record their voice. And the reporter would have had to speak into a big microphone. And another way the news was made, guys, was by a helicopter. So if it was too far for news crews to travel, the news choppers were called in to take aerial shots. Now, the cameraman used to sit outside the chopper with a camera with a safety harness. Now, a safety harness was compulsory while the door was up to give the camera clear access, and it was constant communication between him and the helicopter pilot. Here's that now.
That is so much information, Barry, all about the history of the television and how the news is recorded. Very informative.
So at night time, okay, there is a skeleton star. So not everybody was at the station at that time. Often there are news updates throughout the day and into the evening leading up to the 6 o'clock news. And Channel 10's news started at 6 o'clock, okay? And the news readers on Channel 10 were Tim Webster, Katrina Lee, and the sports person was Rex Moffat, and the weather was done by Dale Miles. Now, the sports person, again, the same like the journals, they used to type their script, okay, and things like that. So a lot has changed throughout with the news. But now today, the news is all digital. So a lot has changed since way back then. So what was your favorite news channel now?
I would have to say, Barry, the ABC. I don't even remember the broadcasters' names as you do. My memory's not that good.
It was Richard Moorcroft.
Right, yes, I do remember him, yes. Yes.
So Richard Moorcroft, he read the ABC's television news bulletin in Sydney, while Mary Delahunty, she read the news in Melbourne on AB3.
Your memory is outstanding. I can't believe it, Barry.
And Rod Young, he used to read the news in Brisbane, and he also read the news on 7 a couple of times at the Mount Coot-tha studios and of course the Gold Coast. So a lot of news readers have come and gone. Like when I was growing up in Brisbane, guys, Jackie McDonald and Dave McWilliam read the Brisbane News, and Ron Wilson even had a go. And also there was Billy J. Smith and Paul Bongiorno. He used to work for 10 in Canberra, the Canberra Bureau. And then there was Mike Higgins and Ned Roberts on 7 National News in Brisbane. And then Kay McGrath, she was on 7. And Noel Stanaway did the weather on 7, and on Channel 9 it was Dom Second and Paul Griffith. So a lot of history back there, guys. Wow, what a long way television has come. Wouldn't you agree?
Certainly would.
So when I was growing up, it was Channel O. One of the slogans were, "Hello, Channel O, turn on a friend." And then there's great entertainment on Channel O. We're sharing summer with Channel O. That was in 78, 79. And Keep Your Eye on the O. That was in 78. And I like it from 1977. And then in 1980, that Summer Feeling, and in 1981, Turn on a Friend. And then in 1982, Hello Channel O, and then Getting Better All the Time. Okay, that was in 1983, and then in 1984, okay, Go TVO. So, and then when I moved to Sydney in 84, okay, Your Home on 10 out of 10 Australia. That was for its 21st birthday. And then in 1987, We've Got It Together. And then in 1988, they didn't have a slogan. And then in 1989, You've Got a Friend on 10. And then at the 90s, I progressed. Okay, This Is It. That's entertainment. Turn Me On 10. Give Me 10. That sort of thing. So guys, we hope that you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. And here's Nat now.
Thank you, Barry. Yes, we do hope that you've enjoyed today's show. It's been very informative, lots of history, lots of names of the presenters and the program and the way the production has changed. It's been very interesting sitting with you, Barry. Thank you.
But before we do go today, another show I forgot to mention was Good Morning Australia. That was done with Tim Webster and Carrie Ann Kennelly and Gordon Elliott and Sue Calloway. And also the Today Show started with Sue Calloway and Steve Liebman. Wow, that's going back.
That's a flash from the past.
And Eric Waters was the first newsreader back on the show, and some of the weather presenters as well. There was Brian Bury on the Today Show, then Tracy Grimshaw, she did the news there, and then there was Ian Ross, who is no longer with us, and Sharon Cadella. I could go on all day about this, but we haven't got time for that. So Channel 9 moved from Willoughby to North Sydney in 2020. So we wish we could have gone on all morning, but we haven't got time for that. So have a great weekend, everybody, and next time we're going to be talking about game shows and how they were put together. So join us for the second part of the history of television on episode 40 next week. So a big one coming up. And the number that we close the show with is always 000. Please do not call that number for stupid, trivial issues, please. Here is Nat for her closing message on this.
Thanks, Barry. Like you've said, you don't call for trivial issues or nonsense calls, prank calls to 000. It's only for emergencies. Very, very important. And have a great week, everybody.
And have a great weekend. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. And Nat and I are off to have a relax now, and we will see you next Friday morning.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.